You have found a warning from God, and He has confirmed this person repeatedly. I know exactly why you're here. Their name appeared again today, didn't it? Maybe it was on a license plate that caught your eye at the exact moment you were thinking of them. Perhaps their favorite song played 3 times in different places within the span of an hour. Or you woke up at 3:33 a.m. from another dream where they were speaking words they haven't yet said in waking life. And now you're wondering if you're going insane, if you're manufacturing these signs out of desperation, or if something divine is actually trying to communicate with you through this relentless pattern of synchronicities. Let me tell you something that will change how you see everything. These repetitions are not your imagination running wild. They are not wishful thinking dressed up as spirituality. They are deliberate confirmations from a realm that operates beyond the limitations of human logic, and they're being sent to you for a very specific purpose that most people completely misunderstand. You see, when heaven marks someone in your life with this level of persistent confirmation, it's not giving you a green light to chase them. It's not telling you to send that text, make that call, or show up at their door. These signs are serving an entirely different function. They are spiritual anchors meant to sustain your faith during what I call the sacred silence. That excruciating period where heaven speaks loudly to you about someone who seems to have forgotten you exist. The person who won't leave your thoughts isn't there by accident. They didn't randomly take up residence in your mind through some psychological quirk or emotional attachment disorder. When God repeatedly confirms someone to you through dreams that feel more real than reality, through their name appearing in the most impossible places, through numbers that follow you like breadcrumbs on a divine trail, He's not playing games with your heart. He's preparing you for something that requires a level of faith most humans never develop. The ability to hold on to divine truth when every physical circumstance screams the opposite. Right now, you're probably caught in the most confusing paradox of your spiritual journey. On one side, heaven won't stop sending you confirmations about this person. Every time you try to let go, another sign appears. Every time you attempt to move on, their presence intensifies in your spiritual atmosphere. Yet on the other side, in the physical realm, there's nothing but silence. They're distant, maybe even cold. Perhaps they're with someone else, or they've explicitly told you they're not interested, or they've simply vanished from your life without explanation. This contradiction between spiritual confirmation and physical rejection is not a cruel cosmic joke. It's a sophisticated spiritual process that's preparing both of you for something neither of you is ready for yet. Before we continue, please take a moment to subscribe. It costs nothing and ensures that this signal reaches you on the days when you need it most. Think of it as a way to protect the part of you that loves deeply, rather than letting the noise drown it out. By subscribing, you are choosing to protect your project and remain connected to the God and love that strengthens you. There's a spiritual principle that most people never learn because it contradicts everything our instant gratification culture teaches us. When heaven really wants you to understand something crucial to your destiny, it doesn't whisper once and disappear. It repeats the message with such persistent intensity that ignoring it becomes more exhausting than accepting it. The question you need to ask isn't, why does this person keep appearing in my life through signs, but rather, what is God preparing me to endure that requires this level of reinforcement? Think about how military forces prepare soldiers for battle. They don't run through critical procedures once and hope everyone remembers under pressure. They drill the same movements, the same protocols, the same responses hundreds of times until the actions become so embedded in muscle memory that they can be executed even when the mind is overwhelmed by chaos. This is exactly what's happening with these divine confirmations about this person. God isn't repeating their name, their numbers, their presence in your dreams, because He thinks you're slow to understand. He's building spiritual muscle memory for a journey that will test every fiber of your faith. These confirmations serve as what I call spiritual ammunition for the dry days ahead, because here's what's coming. There will be stretches of time where the physical evidence suggests you should give up. Days when logic screams that you're wasting your time. Moments when well-meaning friends will present compelling arguments for why you should move on. And in those moments, these repeated confirmations become your lifeline. They're not just memories of signs you once saw, they're anchors that keep you stable when the storms of doubt try to sweep you away. But let me address the elephant in the room. How do you know these signs are genuine divine confirmation and not just your mind creating patterns where none exist? This is where spiritual discernment becomes critical. True divine confirmation has specific characteristics that distinguish it from wishful thinking. First, it comes unbidden. You're not searching for signs, they find you. Second, it carries a quality of peace even in its intensity, unlike obsessive thoughts that create anxiety. Third, it often includes elements you couldn't have manufactured, information you didn't know, timing you couldn't have controlled, connections you couldn't have forced. The biblical pattern shows us this repeatedly. Joseph received dreams about his destiny years before it manifested. Those dreams weren't given to him once they came in multiple forms, through multiple confirmations, preparing him for the 13 years of slavery and imprisonment that stood between the promise and its fulfillment. The repetition wasn't cruel teasing, it was merciful preparation. God was essentially saying, you're going to need to remember this when everything around you suggests I've forgotten my promise. When God confirms someone to you repeatedly, He's not just identifying them, He's fortifying you for the unique challenges this connection will bring. Because connections that require this level of divine intervention are never simple. They're not the relationships that flow easily from attraction to commitment. They're the ones that require both parties to be completely transformed before they can sustain what God intends to build through them. The repetition is proportional to the resistance you'll face, both externally and internally. The silence from this person is probably the loudest thing in your life right now. It echoes through your days, amplifies in quiet moments, and becomes almost deafening when those divine confirmations keep appearing while they remain distant. But here's what's actually happening beneath that silence, and it's not what your fears are telling you. Their withdrawal isn't rejection, it's resistance. Not resistance to you, but resistance to the very transformation that connecting with you would require from them. Inside this person right now, there's a war raging that they probably can't even articulate. When someone is marked for divine connection with another soul, their entire internal system goes into protective overdrive. Their ego senses danger, not physical danger, but the kind of existential threat that real love presents to carefully constructed defenses. You see, entering into the connection that heaven is orchestrating between you would require them to demolish walls they've spent years, maybe decades, building. It would demand vulnerability they've sworn they'd never show again. It would mean releasing control in areas of their life where control has been their only sense of safety. What looks like indifference or rejection from the outside is actually internal chaos on the inside. They are probably experiencing their own set of confirmations about you, dreams they wake up from confused and shaken, moments where your name appears in their world too, instances where they can't explain why they can't seem to fully let you go, even when logic says they should. But unlike you, who has perhaps grown more comfortable with spiritual guidance, they're fighting it with everything they have. They're telling themselves it's just coincidence. They're rationalism away the signs. They're doing mental gymnastics to avoid acknowledging what their spirit already knows, that you represent a before and after moment in their life, and they're terrified of entering the after. This is what I call the divine parallel process. While heaven is sending you confirmations to maintain your faith, it's simultaneously working on them in ways that are completely invisible to you. God doesn't just prepare one person for divine connection. Both parties undergo preparation, but rarely in the same way or at the same speed. Your preparation might be learning to hold space for something you can't see. Their preparation might be learning to release control over something they can't predict. You're being taught faith. They're being taught surrender. You're learning patience. They're learning courage. The fear running through them right now is primal. It's the fear of being truly seen by someone who could actually perceive all of them: light and shadow, strength and weakness. It's the fear of wanting something so much that losing it would devastate them, so they'd rather not have it at all. It's the fear that if they open that door to you, everything in their carefully organized life will need to be reorganized. And they're right. It will. That's exactly why heaven is taking this time to prepare them, to slowly dismantle their resistance, to gentle them into readiness for what's coming. The most dangerous mistake you could make right now would be to put your entire life on hold while waiting for this person to arrive at their moment of readiness. I've watched too many people receive divine confirmation about someone and then proceed to sit by the window of their life, watching for that person's return, while their own dreams collect dust and their own growth stagnates. This is not what heaven intended when it sent you those confirmations. The signs weren't meant to paralyze you, they were meant to mobilize you in a very specific direction, toward your own becoming. Here's a spiritual truth that will revolutionize how you navigate this waiting period. Your transformation and theirs are energetically linked. When you grow, it creates what I call a spiritual vacuum that actually accelerates their process, not through manipulation or energetic coercion, but through the natural laws of divine connection. When two souls are marked for convergence, the one who embraces their evolution first creates an energetic current that pulls the other forward. But this only works when your growth is genuine, focused on your own becoming rather than performed for their attention. This is the time to become the person you would be if they never returned. I know that sounds counterintuitive when heaven keeps confirming they will, but this paradox is actually the key to everything. Build the life that makes you proud to wake up each morning. Pursue the dreams you've been postponing. Heal the wounds you've been avoiding. Develop the skills you've been meaning to learn. Not to impress them, not to make them jealous, not to prove something, but because your soul deserves to flourish, regardless of anyone else's timeline. The vibrant life you build during this waiting period serves multiple divine purposes. First, it ensures that when they do return, they're meeting the real you, not a suspended version waiting for permission to exist. Second, it demonstrates to heaven that you can steward blessings independently, that you're not seeking someone to complete you, but to complement what's already whole. Third, and this is crucial, it generates the exact frequency that makes the divine connection possible. Two broken people don't create wholeness, they create codependency. But two whole people growing individually while connected spiritually, that creates the kind of love that transforms generations. Every morning you wake up and choose growth over stagnation. You're not just improving yourself, you're participating in their healing too. There's an invisible thread between you, confirmed by all those signs. And when you elevate your frequency through genuine development, it sends waves of possibility down that thread. They feel it, even if they can't explain it. It shows up as random thoughts about you, unexpected dreams, a strange pull to change things in their own life. Your growth doesn't force them, it inspires them, calls to something within them that wants to rise to meet you. The way you've been praying about this person needs to fundamentally change, and I'm going to tell you why. Most people, when they receive divine confirmation about someone, immediately launch into what I call possession prayers. God, make them love me. Make them come back. Make them see what we could have. Make them choose me. These prayers, though understandable, are actually working against the very outcome heaven is trying to orchestrate. They are rooted in fear, control, and lack, rather than faith, surrender, and abundance. True intercession, the kind that actually moves heaven and shifts circumstances, operates from an entirely different frequency. Instead of praying from your wound of wanting, you begin praying from a place of spiritual authority for their wholeness. The prayer shifts from bring them to me to bring them to you. From make them love me to heal whatever keeps them from giving and receiving love freely. This isn't just semantics, it's a complete reorientation of spiritual energy that changes everything. When you begin genuinely interceding for their freedom rather than obsessing over your desire, something profound happens in the spiritual realm. You stop being a source of energetic pressure in their life and become a source of energetic liberation. Even though they might not consciously know you're praying, their spirit feels the difference. The psychic weight of someone wanting something from them lifts, replaced by the lightness of someone wanting something for them. This shift often triggers breakthrough in their resistance because it removes the very pressure that was keeping their walls up. The biblical pattern of intercession shows us this truth repeatedly. Moses didn't pray, "Make Pharaoh let us go so I can be vindicated." He stood for the complete liberation of his people. Esther didn't pray, "Make the king favor me." She fasted and prayed for the salvation of her entire nation, including herself. When your prayers expand beyond personal desire to divine purpose, heaven responds differently. Resources mobilize, angels get involved, circumstances that seemed immovable suddenly shift. Here's what your new prayer pattern should look like. God, I thank you for confirming this person to me repeatedly. Now I release them fully into your hands. Heal every wound in them that keeps them from wholeness. Break every chain of fear that binds their heart. Reveal yourself to them in ways that transform their entire understanding of love. If we are meant to be together, prepare both of us to honor that connection. If not, prepare both of us for whatever you have planned. But above all, let your will be done, not mine. This kind of prayer does something miraculous. It actually accelerates the divine timeline. When you stop pulling energetically through need and start pushing energetically through love, you align with heaven's own frequency. You become a co-creator rather than a beggar. You step into spiritual authority rather than spiritual dependency. And ironically, this is often the very shift that unlocks everything you were trying to force through desperate prayers. The most paradoxical sign that divine fulfillment is approaching isn't what you'd expect. It's not an increase in signs, not a dramatic dream, not even movement in the physical realm. The clearest indicator that heaven is about to manifest what it's been confirming is the arrival of an inexplicable peace in your spirit, a peace that makes absolutely no logical sense given that nothing external has changed. This peace is so foreign to the anxious watching you've been doing that at first, you might worry something is wrong with you. How can you feel calm when they still haven't returned? How can you feel settled when the situation looks exactly the same as it did months ago? This supernatural peace isn't resignation or giving up. It's not emotional numbness or spiritual bypassing. It's the deep, cellular knowing that everything is already done in the spiritual realm, and physical manifestation is now just a matter of divine timing. It's the same peace Jesus had when he slept in the boat during the storm, not because he didn't care about drowning, but because he knew who was ultimately in control of the waters. When this peace arrives in your spirit regarding this person, it's heaven's way of saying, the work is complete. Now watch it unfold. God doesn't operate according to human calendars, and this is perhaps the hardest truth to accept in our chronologically obsessed world. We want dates, deadlines, specific timelines we can circle on calendars and count down toward. But heaven operates by Kairos time, the perfect moment when all elements align, when both hearts are ready, when circumstances create the exact opening needed for divine purpose to flow through. This timing isn't random or cruel. It's precisely calibrated for maximum transformation with minimal damage to either soul. The inner markers of divine nearness are subtle but unmistakable once you know what to look for. First, the obsessive checking stops naturally, not through white-knuckle discipline but through genuine release. You stop looking at their social media not because you're forcing yourself, but because you genuinely don't need to. Second, you begin making future plans that don't revolve around them potentially being there. You book that trip, take that job, make that move, not to forget them but because your life force has returned to you. Third, and this is crucial, You find yourself genuinely happy for good things happening in their life, even if those good things don't currently include you. When someone returns after true transformation rather than just time passing, they're almost unrecognizable energetically. They might look the same physically, but their entire vibrational signature has shifted. The person who returns isn't the one who left. They've been through their own valley, faced their own demons, and most importantly, they've stopped running from what connecting with you would mean. They return not from loneliness or boredom or failure in other connections, but from genuine readiness to engage with the level of depth this divine connection requires. Between the piece that signals divine nearness and the actual manifestation lies one final spiritual examination that almost no one talks about: the test of alternative options. Just when you've reached that place of supernatural calm, just when you've finally released the desperate grip on this divinely confirmed person, heaven often allows something unexpected to occur. Someone else appears. Someone available, interested, uncomplicated. Someone who represents everything that would be easier than continuing to hold space for a person who remains distant. This isn't cruelty from heaven, it's the final verification of your readiness to steward what's been promised. This test arrives with almost mathematical precision, usually when you're genuinely feeling good about your life, when you've actually achieved that state of wholeness we talked about. Suddenly, there's someone new showing interest. They're attractive, spiritually aware, emotionally available. They check many boxes on paper. Friends and family get excited, saying things like, "See, maybe this is who God meant all along." Maybe those signs were preparing you for this person instead. And for the first time in this entire journey, you find yourself genuinely conflicted, because this new person represents rest from the exhausting vigilance of waiting. The appearance of this alternative option serves multiple divine purposes that most people completely misunderstand. First, it tests whether your confirmation about the original person was genuinely from God or merely from your own attachment. If it was just human desire, this new option will feel like rescue, like finally being able to exhale and choose something simpler. But if the confirmation was truly divine, you'll experience something very different, a strange inability to fully engage with this new person despite their obvious qualities. It's not that they're not wonderful, it's that your spirit simply won't unlock for them the way it did for the one who was confirmed. This is where spiritual integrity becomes everything. The temptation isn't just romantic, it's existential. It's the temptation to choose the easier path, the one that doesn't require faith, the one that would let you finally tell everyone, "I've moved on," and receive their approval and relief. It's the temptation to interpret this new person's appearance as God changing his mind, giving you an escape route from the difficulty of holding space for someone who seems to have forgotten you exist. Many people fail this test, choosing immediate comfort over divine promise, and then spend years wondering why the relationship feels like wearing someone else's clothes, functional but never quite fitting right. But when you pass this test, when you can look at this attractive alternative and say, "You're wonderful, but you're not my assignment," something profound shifts in the spiritual realm. Your choosing to continue holding space for the original person despite having other options demonstrates to heaven that you're not operating from desperation, but from divine conviction. You're not waiting because you have no other choice. You're waiting because you recognize the difference between what's available and what's ordained. This conscious choice to honor the divine confirmation, even when offered an easier path, is what I call mature spiritual fidelity. The fascinating thing about this test is what happens to the alternative person after you make your choice. Often, they become a friend, sometimes an important one. Sometimes they meet their own divine connection shortly after encountering you, as if their brief appearance in your story was partially about positioning them for their own destiny. Nothing is wasted in God's economy. Every person who crosses your path during this waiting period serves a purpose, either as confirmation of what you're waiting for, or as preparation for what they themselves are about to receive. This test also serves to purify your own motivations one final time. Are you holding space for this person because you're afraid of being alone? Because you're addicted to the intensity of the spiritual signs? Because you've invested so much time that giving up feels like failure? Or are you holding space because you genuinely recognize a divine assignment that transcends personal desire? The appearance of an alternative forces you to answer this question with actions, not just words. It's one thing to say you're waiting on God's promise when there are no other options. It's entirely another to maintain that stance when an easier path presents itself. Here's what most people don't realize. The person you're waiting for often intuitively feels when you pass this test. They might not consciously know that you chose them over someone else, but something in their resistance softens. It's as if you're choosing them when you didn't have to, creates a kind of spiritual credibility that their soul recognizes. Here we stand at the threshold of understanding, and everything you've learned about these divine confirmations now crystallizes into one essential truth. You've been given a sacred assignment to hold spiritual space for something that hasn't yet manifested physically. This isn't a burden, it's one of the highest forms of spiritual service a human being can offer. You're literally standing in the gap between heaven's promise and earth's manifestation, and your faith during this interval is part of what allows the miracle to complete its journey from the invisible to the visible. The confirmations you've received, every synchronicity, every dream, every impossible appearance of their name or number, these weren't given to torment you with what you don't have. They were given as spiritual equipment for a very specific kind of journey, the kind where you must walk by faith when sight offers no evidence. These signs are your manna in the wilderness, your daily bread of reminder that what God has spoken remains true even when circumstances scream otherwise. They're the proof that you're not crazy, you're not making this up, and you're not holding on to false hope. What happens next requires a kind of spiritual maturity that most people never develop. You must now walk steadily forward with what I call clean faith, faith that isn't contaminated by manipulation, desperation, or the need to make something happen on your timeline. This means living fully in each day while holding space for tomorrow's promise. It means being completely present in your current reality while maintaining absolute faith in a future reality you cannot yet see. It means dancing in the tension between contentment with what is and expectation for what's coming. The person you're holding space for is on their own journey with God, one that you cannot rush, manipulate, or control. Your only assignment is to remain steady in your own lane, growing in your own purpose, becoming who you're meant to be, regardless of when they arrive. This isn't passive waiting, it's active becoming. Every day you choose growth over stagnation, faith over fear, intercession over obsession. You're participating in a divine orchestration that's far bigger than just two people coming together. When they finally arrive, and if heaven has confirmed it repeatedly, they will arrive, they won't be meeting the person you were when they left. They'll be meeting someone who has been refined by waiting, strengthened by faith, and prepared by the very process that once felt like torture. And you won't be meeting who they were either. You'll be meeting someone who has finally stopped running, finally faced their fears, finally become capable of meeting you at the depth this connection requires. Until that moment, your job is simple but not easy. Hold the line, keep growing, keep believing, keep becoming. Trust that heaven doesn't waste confirmations, doesn't play games with hearts, and doesn't give promises it won't fulfill. The very fact that God has confirmed this person to you repeatedly means something is happening that transcends normal human connection. This is about divine purpose, generational healing, and kingdom assignments that require both of you to be exactly who you're becoming through this process. So tonight, as you lay your head down, remember this. You're not waiting for nothing. You're holding space for something sacred. Every sign was real. Every confirmation was deliberate. And everything you've endured has been preparing you for a love that will be worth every moment of the wait.